35, 26, and 25, so 50 or 85, roughly 85. See, maybe a little more because they don't tell me how far it is from this parking lot to here. It looks like 122 feet. That should be this number here.
It's like 1 inch is 40 feet.
1 inch is 40 feet. Yeah, see, here's the number. I think it's 122 feet. From your fence. Assuming, is there a fence there?
I did have a fence, yeah.
And then they're saying...
My fence has to go back to the I put it inside.
Gotcha. And then they're saying, they're claiming there's going to be a 30-foot mound here with landscape trees all the way around.
They could scale this
Well, this isn't really a landscape design.
I'm not going to do a landscape plan until they get approval.
Yeah, this is just a rough, and then they'll have to work with their own guy, and he can say what they want to put.
Yeah, no, to bring that in front of us.
It says existing trees to remain, not recommended. There's some that are probably just brush, you know what I mean? Some are...
No, we don't want it. I can have a lien on that property. I've been paying for almost 24 years cutting those trees laying down on my fence. Change my fence 3 times. So
really?
Yeah, they're bad. But what I'm saying is, it's 3 stories building. What are the chances of talking to them? When is this meeting is going to be only for zoning?
Yeah, we're just a recommendation board, and then we vote tonight whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea. And then the trustees take our recommendation and they and that'll be like in a month. 3 trustees. But yeah, here.
But we only make recommendations. Yeah, we have what's on the books that says we can make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Our personal opinion sometimes doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does.
I think I did a little bit.
Lucas County already approved.
Some things when I run it, you can wait in there.
So
This one,
bring the
this is
main.
going to be kind of crazy.
And then why doesn't he just do 3 short ends like that? That way you keep this main structure off the road 5 feet away from it. And you'll be looking at little wings right here. So it's in the whole building. Make it like a heat.
Or put a detention pond all the way around.
See? Right, they got it.
So you don't agree?
I don't agree with how it deferred. No, because
Thank you. That's it. I got my answer.
I mean, I can't say, just the layout. You know what I mean?
But
we'll see what he says.
I'm trying to say, you've been there for what, 20 years?
See, because we're there, we can move down.
Just for I might
You guys.
feet up in the air.
I mean, I've been there for 24 years. I don't want to come and step on my kids or my daughter. I'm like, you all right? You agree? From nowhere, I'm going to put 51 years old up there, watch my, if you watch me, what's going to happen? I'm going to end up either in jail or so why do you have to go through all this?
Well, you're more than welcome to it.
I'm going to. It's going to be like, worst comes to worst, I'm coming to this. I've been in this city for a long time.
Thank you, site plan.
I really appreciate it. Anyway,
The area on that yellow section. Roadway. Yeah, it's going in.
That must be where they're going to leave the extra that they're letting get away with.
Anyone do this before?
So that's where it's going to probably go.
Water quality structure. Will they move it?
Tell me that's going to be enough to
Wait a minute, you tell me, so what they did, they moved it?
Yeah, where was it?
The original detention pond was over there.
Yeah, see, that's where I saw it.
Can I have your attention, please? I would I'd like to call the October 12th meeting of the Zoning Commission to order. Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Sabo.
Here.
Ms. Himmeline.
Here.
Mr. Pat.
Here.
Mr. Kriege.
Here.
Mr. Will.
Okay. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes of the September 14th meeting. Everybody should have received an email version of that. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion in 2 seconds. Quick one. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as you receive them? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Sabo.
Yes.
Ms. Himmeline.
Yes.
Mr. Pat.
Yes.
Mr. Kriege.
Yes.
Motion approved. We have no old business and 2 items of new business. One is a zone change request for a King Road parcel, and one is a zone change request for Percentum. I've been asked, and I have decided we are going to do that, to move the Percentum item up on the agenda, and we will take the King Road as a second item. So the first zone change request we're going to consider is from A4 Rural Residential to R5 Residential PUD for the property located at 3331 and 3233 Percentum Road. And I'm going to turn it over to Darrell to give us an overview of this request.
Thank you. The requested zone change from A4 Rural Residential to R5 Residential PUD is for the 2 parcels located at 3233 and 3331 Percentum Road. The 2 parcels have a combined buildable acreage of approximately 9.1 acres. A single-family dwelling is currently sited on each parcel. The applicant proposes to construct a 40,800 square foot, 4-story, 127-unit senior living apartment building on the site. The R5 PUD allows a maximum density of 21.8 units per acre. However, the Township Land Use Plan advocates this part of the township as a transitional district and calls out 2-family and multifamily uses at densities that range between 10 and 15 units per acre. The proposed 127-unit project on 9.1 acres represents a density of 13.9 units and is closer to that of the R4 PUD maximum units per acre of 8.7 than that of the R5 PUD. The transitional district is intended to be a buffer between less intense uses such as the single-family residential to the north, the senior apartments to the east, the subject property, for example, and the more intense commercial uses to the south and the west. Section 2911 of the Township Zoning Resolution requires that multifamily residential have a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. This equates to 254 spaces for the proposed 127-unit project. The applicant is providing 169 parking spaces, approximately 1.3 spaces per unit. Given the nature of the proposed development as senior living apartments, this ratio is likely more than adequate to meet the parking needs of the residents and their guests. Section 2908 addresses such a situation by allowing for deferred parking, in which the developer indicates where the future parking, if deemed necessary by the zoning manager, will be allocated. The applicant is indicating 83 deferred parking spaces. Access to the site will be via a 1 drive off of Percentum Road that will encircle the primary building. Section 2002 of the Township Zoning Resolution dictates that a maximum of 40% of the gross parcel acreage shall be devoted to coverage by buildings, structures, street, driveway, or parking. This proposed plan indicates 28% coverage. Section 2002 further requires that a minimum of 15% of the gross parcel acreage, none of which shall be part of any yard, shall be allocated to usable, accessible, and consolidated common open space, which may include recreational areas, ponds, detention, retention areas, or natural areas. The proposed plan indicates 42% of the acreage as open space. Sylvania Township zoning staff finds that the requested zone change is compatible with the land use plan's designation of transitional use and with the neighboring uses. Further, staff finds that the proposed PUD meets the requirements of the zoning resolution. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the requested zone change from A4 Rural Residential to R5 residential PUD for the properties located at 3233 and 3331 Presentum Road, subject to the 22 conditions as presented in the Lucas County Plan Commission staff report dated September 28, 2016.
And I believe the Lucas County Plan Commission also recommended approval?
Yes. And that was on the 28th of September as well.
Thank you. Is there a representative who, on this project, who wishes to address the zoning commission?
Laura Thomas, attorney for the applicant.
Okay, anybody who wants to address should go to the podium, and then because it is a recorded meeting, state your name and address, and then you can address the zoning commission.
My name's Laura Shomos. I'm the attorney for FFC. I have John Sines here, who's one of the engineers for the project.
Good evening, board and members of the community. I'm here representing Harbor Woods Living. We are an owner-operator of a 55 and older independent living facility. It's nice to walk in with a staff presentation like this. It makes my job easy. We are 127 units on just over 9 acres. We have provided, sure.
No, we need one more down at the end. I'm sorry.
We provided a few more just refined renderings for the board, some floor plan information. We offer a wide range of amenities within our building. We have a large community room, family rooms on each floor. We offer commercial-sized laundry on every other floor for comforters, things like that. Our product is geared and really engineered and constructed towards 55 and older. The showers are all step-in showers if they're not roll-in, full handicap accessible. The toilets are raised a little higher for the more mature resident. We also offer a range of concierge services, we like to call them. We usually pair with a local home health care service that'll provide an a la carte type menu of medical and non-medical services. The philosophy behind that is to try to keep the residents in the building and out of the more expensive assisted living for as long as possible. It maintains the resident in their community so they can go to the same church, stay close to their family, their friends, the grocery store they're used to. So it's a product that's really geared towards the community. The services really evolve by what the community ends up needing. A lot of townships, counties, cities end up having a lot of senior services, and we try to fill in the blanks for that. So we'll cater those services accordingly. Really here to answer any questions the board or the community might have in regards to our product, the site, FFC in general.
Are there any questions for the gentleman from members of the zoning commission?
How do you control keeping it 55 and older?
Well, our leases control it for us, but we've also gone as far as deed restricting the property. But in this case, since we're a PUD, the zoning usually has enough teeth to keep it. We would have to come back in front of this board if it were ever to change use. So zoning code.
So if I came in there and filled out a credit app and passed, I couldn't get an apartment there?
Correct. 55 and older is my counterpart who deals a lot with this, is a restricted and protected age group. So that's how the fair housing works with 55 and older.
Any other questions from members of the...
Excuse me. Addressing that, we do not have anything in zoning that would address necessarily keeping it 55 and up. We do not have a specific senior living.
Because we've been sold this before, and you know, we were warned from other communities that these groups come in and sell themselves as 55 and older, and then if you pass a credit app, you can get an apartment there. So that's just, I didn't know if Ohio had a law or anything that preserves that.
I don't know if Ohio has a law or not, but as far as from a zoning standpoint, we don't. Some municipalities do have senior residential zone districts. Sylvania Township does not have.
But does the
specific-
PUD, by the approval of the PUD, that even there's nothing that would,
No, it's just.
We rely on their
R5
word
It's an
and their leases.
R5 residential PUD, but it would not specifically make it 55 and up.
Is this similar to a HOPA community?
To a what?
I believe it's referred to as a HOPA community. Certain percentage has to be 55 and over, but they would allow a small percentage of 55 and under.
We are strictly 55 and older owner-operators. That's our product. That's what we're gearing it towards. That's what it's marketing towards. And that's really our application. So I was under the impression if it were ever to be a change in use, it would have to come back in front of this board for approval.
I can speak to that, sorry.
we'll ask you to state your name.
Nathan Bollinger, FFC Capital, 2546 Happy Valley Road, Worcester, Ohio. What we do is we place a deed restriction on the property, so we can't transfer title unless it's another transfer of title for 55 and up community. So that protects it for you guys, for the city. The only way that we could sell this property is to another 55 and older user. So that's how you protect it. And then in terms of the designated class, that's federally protected from the Equal or Fair Housing Board. And to his point, you can allow up to, I believe it's 10%, but they have to be a primary caregiver of that individual. Does that clarify? Okay.
Are there other questions from the zoning?
Darrell, with the open space requirement, if the 83 deferred spaces are happen to be put in, does it still meet the 15% open green space?
Yes, it does. And those spaces are also accounted for in the detention system, stormwater detention system.
Other questions from members?
Do the units require, is there a?
If you're going to want to speak, we're going to ask you to come up and come to the microphone. So let's just first, are there any other questions for these gentlemen from members of the zoning commission? Okay. If there are none, if there are other people in the audience who would like to address the issue, we're going to ask you to come to the microphone and again state your name, and so we'll have it on record, and then if you have a question, you can ask it that way, okay? Does anybody else wish to address the issue of the Presentum Road? If you do, come to the microphone. Come to King Road later, but this is just about Presentum. Okay. State your name and address. I'm going to ask you as we do this, if you can be brief and succinct in your comments, and we'll move forward with that.
Did you guys get the oaths? Did you do the oath thing?
You're all set.
Huh? You don't have to, the speakers don't have to?
We haven't yet traditionally done that.
Okay, my name is Al Hayes. I live at 7040 Whitetail Court. I have a couple questions about the traffic. I don't think there's been a traffic study on that. That road is not capable of that type of traffic per day. They haven't told us how many cars they expect to come in and out of there. That's going to clog that part of the street up. So what they'll do is they'll go through the back neighborhood there. It's very evident. The other thing is it's going to put a horrendous load on the fire department and the rescue squad. And I don't know if you've taken that into consideration. And the 55 and older, yes, it has to be in the deed restriction. And that's what they'll do. But who polices that? Tough to do, unless somebody complains. I'm not against things moving along in the township, but that's way too dense, I feel, for that area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
My name is Thomas Kirkhope. I live at 3437 Piney Point Drive, which is in Carytown North, which is backs up to Percentum Road. And I represent a number of my neighbors who have similar concerns. Not too many years ago, a similar building was put up, as you may or may not be aware, directly across the street. And it was, as close as we can figure, that one is going to turn out to be about 1/3 of the size of what this one is, as far as numbers of people are concerned. When that building went up, we noticed a large increase in traffic. We are not that close to the individual building, but it turns out that I'm sure all of you are familiar with the corner of Central Avenue and McCord Road, which is a very, very busy and getting busier area as time goes on. And so what a lot of people have started doing is cutting through our neighborhood. Ever since Carytown North was there, it's the first time you've been able to cut through and bypass that big intersection. So that bypass has been increasing and increasing and increasing as the corner gets busier. So we're concerned that traffic through our neighborhood is going to increase exponentially. Now, as far as the age restriction is concerned, I don't think many of us are concerned about that because most of us in the Carytown North neighborhood are already 55 or more. It's a pretty much retirement community. There are no small children. There are a few teenagers, most of whom just cut through to go to Southview High School and so on. But there are a lot of elderly people who have restricted ambulation and so forth and have a lot of trouble with the continually increasing traffic through our neighborhood. We at one time, not too long ago, tried to improve the traffic problem by requesting at least some stop signs or something put in the neighborhood. That we were turned down on that. So traffic is probably our main concern. Another big concern, and we cannot be certain whether this is related to the new residents or not, but it stands to reason that when the old, pardon me for saying old, the previous building was put up, we noticed a drop in our water pressure. And we're very much concerned that a new building with triple the number of people in it is going to give us even more trouble with our water pressure. Now that ought to at least be looked into to see whether there's a relationship or not. I think that pretty much covers.
Thank you very much.
Say.
Hi, my name is Mark Davenport. I reside at 6937 Blossman Road. I'll just say that pretty much the elephant in the room is the size of this thing. I really don't think most people would really want something like this moving into their neighborhood. As far as the traffic goes, I don't really know a lot of the residents that live behind me. I've lived there for over 20 years. But I can attest to the fact that the traffic through that neighborhood, through their development, is off the hook. It is really bad. That's another issue. I know you're not going to address that here, but putting up a huge apartment complex like that, 4 stories, is something that I would really be sad to see for our neighborhood. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Dave Jagosinski, 3437 Percentum Road. Another concern I have is that retention pond. In the day of West Nile and Zika viruses, who's going to control the mosquito population on that thing? Not to mention you're putting a 4-story hotel at the end of the road.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wishes to address this? Okay, one more.
Julia McLaughlin, 7041 Blossman Road. My concern is the interaction with the University Park's bike trail. A lot of people use Percentum Road to get to the bike trail. Percentum Road has no sidewalk and no street lighting. So if you increase the traffic dramatically on Percentum Road, you're going to risk vehicle-pedestrian collisions. Also, people do not look when they come out of Carytown onto Percentum Road. They don't look to the right to see people coming down Percentum Road, so there's more scope for accidents there. And finally, Sylvania means city of trees. You're just ripping out more and more trees to put more and more concrete in. It doesn't sound like it's going to be Sylvania anymore.
Okay. Anybody else? One more?
I'm partially interested in seeing, if you don't
Pardon?
mind. I said I'm partially interested, if you don't mind, in seeing how many of our neighbors are here that have a real problem with the density of this area and the height of the 4-story
You're talking about the
building.
Percentum Road project?
Yes.
We can have a show of hands for the people who are here for Percentum. Okay.
That we do have, and it's not just us on Ridgewood Trail, although I live on the bend. As you come down Ridgewood, we've had at least 3 light poles in the last few years that go down because they come zipping through in different weather and what have you. And I do know that we have had an increase in traffic from the original senior thing, because I recognize a couple of the cars.
Okay.
One's got a yellow one, and it just zips through very nicely. But we all appreciate and don't mind another senior building, but please consider not 4 stories. They've gotten away with it by making a flat roof. The 60 feet on the other one includes the gable that they don't have more than the 3 stories. And please carefully consider doing a less dense place. It would help all of the different things that are a problem right now.
Okay. Did you state your name? I forget.
I'm sorry, Sandra Wisely.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Responses?
Just a couple things. Traffic, we did do a traffic study. We generate 5 to 7 trips per peak hours, which is the hours of 3 to 6. So it's very low impact on traffic. Only 73% of our residents own cars. That's why, hence the parking variance, why we're land banking parking spots. That is a retail district right there coming on Central, so you're going to have traffic, I feel, regardless, which is probably better now that Giant Eagle's not existing. So there's probably less traffic there. Did you want to? Yeah.
That's short.
Anything else that you'd like to add?
In regards to stormwater management, the basin will be constructed and have a maintenance agreement with the, I believe that falls under Toledo, stormwater management. It will be constructed per Ohio EPA standards. And also in regards to the traffic, I really see our residents going out towards West Central to get to the grocery stores. And most of that traffic would be towards that direction to get to the grocery stores, the retail, and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Also to add, we are actually putting in sidewalks along Percentum.
Yeah, our plan does call for additional sidewalks and walking trails within the property, pretty extensive. Our frontage, yeah, the 620 feet.
Okay. We're just getting into, okay, everybody else, your guys are done? You're done? Okay, so we're going to turn this over to the zoning commission here to talk about this proposal. Comments? Questions?
Well, The one that just, a couple of them that jump out to me is that, obviously in looking at this, there's a recommendation for approval based on the following 29 conditions. A lot of those include the Lucas County sanitary engineer where they're addressing water, sewer, storm, etc. The other issue that, we have heard in the past is that traffic issue. And I don't doubt whatsoever that traffic may reroute and certainly go through the other neighborhood and come out on the court. That's going to be a natural function of anything where we have more density there, more people. However, if many of those residents do not have cars, maybe that's not as large of an issue.
Or if they're retired. Typically, do you find that your clients are retired?
Our trip generation shows that they're off-peak hours, so yes, it would lend to they're retired and going to doctor's appointments versus getting up and going to work.
Average age of our residents is 7 years old.
Yeah.
And it does mention that there's obviously some trip studies that's going to be, you said you've already done a traffic study.
We did a trip generation, yes.
Part of the 29 conditions. So there's just a couple comments I thought there.
Other comments from members of the commission or questions?
I think it also mentioned in there the water line, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that Carytown's on a different feed off of McCord, and this would feed off of Central Avenue.
Correct. It's the
Obviously
newer
got
one
the-
that came down Presentum and kind of dead ends at the old Miller Valentine project.
And the fire department recommended an 8-inch loop all the way around the building. That's in our notes, these guys wouldn't know that, but with fire hydrant on every corner, plus by every entrance, I believe.
And I want to reiterate, we are owner-operators, and our residents we are not assisted living. So the ambulatory comment, we are not assisted living. So it is your normal people living in there. There are occasional trip and falls, but this isn't
These are active adults.
active adults. Yeah.
With current.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the zoning commission? Any other items for discussion?
The only other comment, I'm just curious, board members, with the whole land use plan and it being consistent with that and that transitional zoning, did you guys have any additional thoughts there? It seems pretty consistent.
Well, yeah, they wanted 21.8, and under this zoning, that's what they could have got. So I think Daryl, whoever negotiated this down, is a bonus in one way, because this could go through a lot denser, larger. They didn't have to do a PUD. Obviously, that makes more open space, makes it nicer. And Daryl, the township, has a little more control that way. So, 13.9, I guess, still is a lot, but not considering what is directly to the south of this, meaning Lowe's and
Got to have a commercial district.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman.
Sure.
My name is Chuck Bloom. I'm co-counsel with Ms. Shomos. There was active discussion between Daryl, the professional staff of Lucas County, and my client agreed to a lesser density than originally was proposed. And it was based upon things like the generation of traffic and water and retention and the size of the building. So this is not where we are coming in, my client's coming in and saying, this is what we want and this is what we have to have. And I think that's significant, shows their good faith and shows that they are going to try to work with the community because they are not leaving this community. They're going to be here.
I presume you did some kind of a market study to determine that there is actually a need for this?
Correct. What we do is strategy cabinet in the community. We ask community residents to come out, potential people, give us their input, certain things like amenities. And that's how we kind of determine what amenities we offer. Because it could changes based on what.
Mary.
Yes.
They've got a page on it.
Yeah, there's some demographics in your
Okay,
packet
right,
in
yeah,
regards
I
to
saw
some
that,
comps and some occupancy rates in the area.
Okay. Is there any other question or comments from members of the zoning commission?
I'd like to ask one more question.
If you can step to the microphone. And then we're going to close discussion on this issue.
Did you try to pass one of these in Monclova and Maumee?
We did not.
You did not? Okay, because there was a letter going around that stated that another high-density housing area, and both of those were turned down. And if they were turned down there, they should be turned down here.
You know,
If you, did you want to address this project?
Yes, please. I have lived in Sylvania Township, I got the
Step to the
right.
microphone, name and address, please.
I want to ask why all these people coming with a big project to city of Sylvania
Name and
Township?
address, please.
4133 Meadow Green Drive,
And your name?
Imad Suede.
Okay.
I want to know this company coming into Sylvania Township after many years people come and live in Sylvania Township for peaceful, they like the Sylvania Township for residential only, not commercial. You guys coming up with a big project, 3, 4-story, 5-story, give us headache to all the neighbor on Sylvania Township, or just to guys to make a few bucks for yourself? Did you make a voting for the people of Sylvania Township, they need this or they don't need this? Did you ask anybody in Sylvania Township? Or you just coming to ask the community?
We did do studies, we do market studies.
How did you market study? We need to know, we need the voting, we need the names, we need the people vote for it. You have this,
It has been
ma'am?
provided, and you could speak to Mr. Grouse after the meeting.
You do have,
We've been provided with multiple materials.
okay.
And
I mean,
90% of our residents come from within 5 miles of us.
5 mile radius, they agree on this?
That's statistically what happens.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to stand there, you can sit down if you want. I think we're done, except any other discussion from members of the zoning commission. Thoughts? Are you ready to move to a resolution?
I have something, a comment.
Sure.
When these projects come in, the property that you purchased, how long was it up for sale?
I believe Mr. Unsel's project has been on the market for 4 or 5 years now. Joe, is that correct? Roughly.
So anybody could have bought it, right?
Correct.
The other thing is they're following the land use plan that's been set up for the Sylvania Township area. I sat through one of these land use plans things, and the only people that were here would fit around this table. No one came in and said anything that something like this can't go in that area. No one came in to even see it. Now that someone purchased it, and by the way, anybody could have purchased that property, you all could have purchased it, leave it like it is. But that didn't happen. Now someone wants to build something, they buy this property, and nobody wants this thing built. They're following the land use plan, and I'm defending my vote. If they're complying with the zoning code and they're following the plan, and then Lucas County sticks, how many requirements?
29.
29 requirements on that. What are we supposed to do? Say, no, we don't want it because we want woods behind our house or in front of our house? It's very difficult to do this, and they're following all the rules. They've established everything. If I don't like it, it's not a good excuse.
Okay.
Stick around for the next one. It's the same thing. People build in here. This is going to bring, well, of course it's going to bring income to the township. The point is that property's been there for a long time, and these people want to build on it. And if they comply with the laws and the land use plan, how else am I supposed to vote if they're in compliance with everything? As for the traffic, who said Central Avenue is closed and the traffic goes another way? You laugh about that. I don't go that way. Is it too much time? I'm going to cut through any property. And by the way, the other thing, I've been doing this for some time, and they're going to be in our neighborhood. Your street is a public road. If I owned a used car lot in East Toledo, and you came in to buy a car and asked, where can I test drive it? You go over on Percentum and drive through the neighborhood. That's where we do it. You can't stop that. You know, I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to the concerns, and your concerns are good. But what are we as a board supposed to do when they're complying with all the rules? I don't want to, that's all I need to say.
Any other comments? Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? We need a motion of some kind.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the zone change. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Himmelman?
Yes.
Mr. Cott?
Yes.
Mr. Creedy?
Yes.
Motion carries. It'll now go to the trustees for a final determination.
That'll be on November 1st.
Listen. Our decision is nothing more than a recommendation. That's all it is. The trustees are going to be the ones that make the final decision.
No one filed a dissent if they're 81 years. So if this was your neighborhood, would you have dissented or would you have approved it?
Like a four-story building in your backyard?
That's what I want.
I would.
Your property value.
We are now going to move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the rezoning of the King Road parcel. And we have a request to do a zone change from A3 agriculture to R5 residential PUD for the property located at 4120 King Road. And we're going to wait a minute till we've cleared out, and then we're going to ask Daryl to give us a presentation on this one. Daryl, are you ready?
Yeah, I didn't know if you were...
No, I think we're ready to proceed to discuss the King Road property.
The subject property consists of the northern 8.5 acres of a wooded 15-acre undeveloped lot at 7464 Sylvania Avenue on the northeast corner of King Road and Sylvania Avenue. The applicant is requesting a zone change from A3 agriculture to R5 residential PUD in order to construct a 3-story, 122-unit senior living apartment building. The R5 PUD allows a maximum density of 21.8 units per acre. However, the township land use plan advocates this part of the township as a transitional district and calls out 2-family and multifamily uses at densities that range between 10 and 15 units per acre. The proposed 122-unit project on 8.5 acres represents a density of 14.35 units per acre and is closer to that of the R4 PUD maximum units per acre of 8.7 than that of the R5 PUD. The transitional district is intended to be a buffer between less intense uses, such as the single-family residential to the north and east of the subject property, for example, and the more intense, in this case, commercial uses to the southwest and probable future commercial development to the south at the intersection of King and Sylvania. Ingress-egress to the proposed site will be via King Road and consist of 2 25-foot wide access drives that will encircle the primary building. No vehicular traffic will be through the neighboring residential streets. Section 2911 of the Township Zoning Resolution requires that multifamily residential have a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. This equates to 244 spaces for the proposed 122-unit project. The applicant is providing 126 parking spaces, just over 1 space per unit. Given the nature of the proposed development as senior living apartments, this ratio is likely more than adequate to meet the parking needs of the residents and their guests. Section 2908 addresses such a situation by allowing for deferred parking, in which the developer indicates where the future parking, if deemed necessary by the zoning manager, will be allocated. Section 2222 of the zoning resolution requires a 100-foot setback from center line of King Road for any primary building. The applicant is proposing to construct this building 82 feet from center line and is requesting approval of this deviation from the requirement in order to maintain more of a buffer between the proposed project and the residential properties to the east, as well as align the proposed building with the dwelling to the north, which is sited approximately 81 feet from the center line of King Road. Section 2002 dictates that a maximum of 40% of the gross parcel acreage shall be devoted to coverage by building, structure, street, driveway, or parking. The proposed plan indicates 32% coverage. Sylvania Township zoning staff finds that the requested zone change is compatible with the land use plan's designation of transitional use and with the neighboring uses. Further, staff finds that the proposed PUD meets the requirements of the zoning resolution. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the requested zone change from A3 agriculture to R5 PUD for the property located at 4120 King Road, subject to the 29 conditions as presented in the Lucas County Plan Commission staff report dated September 28, 2016.
And we'll note again that the Lucas County Plan Commission also recommended approval of this project. Right. Okay, we'll follow the same patterns we did with the last one. Does the applicant wish to address the zoning commission?
Good evening. My name is George Horvitz. I'm the consulting engineer for this project. With me is Mr. Mark Brenneman, who is the Senior Vice President of Development for the Clover Development Corporation. As Darrell has indicated to you, this is obviously a transitional zone. It is bounded by single-family residential homes on the north and on the east. On the west side of the property, you have Kingston Healthcare Facility, and you have various commercial and industrial uses on the west side of King Road. South of Sylvania Avenue is predominantly commercial. Kroger's obviously is located on the corner, and the new library is directly across the street from Sylvania Avenue from this site. The hard corner eventually, in all probability, will wind up being some form of commercial use because of all of the particular developments that are occurred around there. What we are attempting to do is similar to what the prior case was. We're attempting to build a transitional use of a senior housing complex. The important thing about this is that what we have done is we've attempted to stay as far away from the adjoining residences to the north and to the east as we possibly could. We've provided 140 feet of separation from our nearest driveway to the property owners to the north. We have 30 feet on our east side, but along that side as well, we have a series of garages that our tenants utilize to park their car inside. That also provides a deterrent or a screening for the property owners to the east. Those trees are about 40 feet plus in height. This has been a wooded area for, gosh, as long as I know. I remember having been approached by a client who looked at this piece of property about 15 years ago. And the property was for sale then. It's been for sale ever since then. This is the first, in my estimation, real viable use for this piece of property based on the residential properties that are adjoining to it. 68% of this site is going to wind up open space. You can't accomplish those sort of numbers unless you in effect consolidate the buildings that you're going to build on the site, so you minimize the impact of pavement, buildings, sidewalks, amenities of that nature. We're proposing a 3-story building. The height of our building is 39 feet. That's from ground grade to the top peak of the building is 39 feet. I spoke with Mr. Jim Moline, who happens to also be a client of mine and has built a tremendous amount of houses in this area. He's probably one of the premier builders that we've had in Sylvania Township. And he had indicated to me that the majority of the 2-story homes that he builds in any of his developments or subdivisions averages somewhere between 30 and 32 feet in height. That means that this structure will be somewhere between 7 and 9 feet higher than a 2-story home that would be built in any subdivision adjacent to it. I happen, as a matter of interest, to measure my house, and I live around the Brandywine area in Monclova Township, and my house happens to be 38 feet high. Your limitation in any of your residential districts for the height of the building is 45 feet. In the R5 district, it's 60 feet. What we are proposing is 39 feet. The good thing about a PUD is the fact that what we present to you, we have to build. We can't move the building, we can't move the parking, we can't move the garages, we can't change anything on this site unless we come back to the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, and the trustees for an amendment and change. The quality of construction that this organization provides is unprecedented in this particular field. These people put all the major appointments into their product. That's the reason they're so successful in the projects that they do build. We don't have any tennis courts outside. We don't have any pool outside. What these people are looking for is peace and quiet. They're not looking for all of those other amenities. The only thing we do provide is what the Planning Commission and your zoning staff recommended, and that was a walking path throughout the project itself, so if the people want to exercise and walk, they can do so within the confines of their property. Daryl, can I use your pointer for a second, please? Put the site plan back on, please. All of this property, including,
There we go.
including all the way down here, all the way across here, all of that existing trees and vegetation will in fact remain. And the purpose for that is to provide an existing visible screen and consolidated and encapsulating our particular project. We've even, like I said, specified that at least some trees, or 10 feet to 20 feet of trees, will be left on the south side so that when that parcel develops, it also protects the investment that they've made in this particular site and maintains the peace and the quiet that their residents are looking for. We feel this is an excellent use of this property because it doesn't create an intrusion. It doesn't, in the adjoining neighborhoods, it doesn't create an amenity or a building or a proposal that's going to change the character of this particular neighborhood, because many of the residents that live around this property through here and down here are going to be the same age as the people that are going to be living in this complex. I'd like Mark to give you an idea of the Clover Development Company, what they're about, and some of the amenities and some of the other information that he has concerning this particular piece of property and why Clover has looked at this site. Incidentally, as Darrell said, we have two means of ingress and egress off King Road only, and that's down there and over here. That was dictated to us by the fire department. Fire department said they wanted to have a circular drive to go around through the development. So in the event this is blocked off or that is blocked off, they have another means of ingress and egress into the site. We purposely put our trash compactor or trash collector in this location so that we are not adjacent to either of our two sites where there's existing residential units. And that particular dumpster is unloaded during the day hours because obviously we don't also want to disturb our residents as well by any sort of night pickup. That was a question some of the residents raised at the meeting that we had with them. Mark?
Thank you, George. You need this? No, I'm good. My name is Mark Branneman. I'm Vice President of Development with Clover Development out of Williamsville, New York. And a lot of the statistics I'm going to give you, you heard in the previous presentation, so I'll go through those quickly. But I do want to give you a little bit of background on who Clover is and what it is we do. We are a 55-plus senior community, market rate apartments, and we do restrict it by the lease. So if somebody came in and qualified financially, if they weren't 55 or older, they could not rent an apartment in our complex. We allow a maximum of 2 weeks a year aggregate where families can come. So families can't move in with somebody who's 55 and older or well, and those are all lease restrictions that a tenant has to sign before they can move in. We were formed in 1987 by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Michael Joseph. We own and manage over 10 million square foot of property. Over the past 15 years, our strategy has been to develop these types of projects, and we not only develop, we maintain for the long term. We're not a develop and flip developer. We develop, own, manage. We've never sold one of them off. Out of the 23 we have operating now and 10 more in the development process. And while we are 55 plus, we're just like they said before, we're active residents. Our average age is 72, but our residents are not those that need any kind of continuing care. We don't have health care on site, we don't have dining on site, so there's no shift change every 8 hours where employees are coming in and out at all hours of the night. Some of our typical features in a building, the entrances are TV monitored and controlled. We have elevator service. The apartments are designed with pull cords and walk-in tubs and all the things for an aged population. Full fire protection with sprinklers throughout the building, in the units, in the common areas, throughout the property. We have activities for our residents, planned activities where there are day trips. They have, a lot of the properties have Wii bowling leagues, as well as card night, movie night, holiday parties, all those different types of things. Our mail service is central and indoor for the population. We have a community room, a library, an outside patio with barbecues, a family room, an exercise room, a beauty salon, the walking path that George was describing within our property, and the game room. And within our rent, the water, sewer, heat, cable, and trash are all included. It's been a very successful model for us through these 23 properties that we have developed throughout the eastern seaboard in Ohio. As was indicated earlier, we don't impact the traffic at our peak hour. We are 7 cars per hour, and all that will go out onto King Road. And our peak hour is 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Obviously, we don't impact the school, although we pay full property tax. Our residents don't take classes at the local high school or middle school, but we pay full property tax. And as George indicated, we do restrict when the refuse service can pick up the dumpster. Obviously, the 29 requirements we'll comply with completely. And as George indicated and has been discussed, the height of the building within the zoning we're requesting, it's allowed up to 60 feet. We're happy to take the restriction of 45 feet, just like the other single-family zoning designations within the township, if that's what you'd like us to do. With that, take any questions, and we're looking forward to being part of your community.
I have a purely random question.
Sure.
How does their trash get to the dumpster? They take it
Our
themselves?
maintenance person. We have trash rooms in the building that it all goes down to a central location, and then the maintenance person takes it
Okay,
out.
I just, random question. Any other questions from members of the zoning commission?
Darrell, what is the setback on other commercial businesses on King Road? From anything north of Sylvania Avenue?
Actually, most of that.
And what's
would-
Kingston?
Kingston would be city of Sylvania. That's what I was going to say. Most of King, north of Sylvania, is city of Sylvania. But King Road, anywhere in Sylvania Township on King Road, the setback would be 100 feet from center line.
Are there other questions?
I wanted to ask about that too. So the building is not 100 feet from the center line of the road?
No, it's 82, I think.
It's 82.
82.53.
Right.
Yeah.
And the distance the building is, according to the book, from a residential district, rear yard. I thought I read in here where the building was moved forward.
Yeah, it was moved closer to the road. It's 122 feet, it looks like, from the rear fence.
If I can add, if you see on the site plan, there's those little projections that are architectural features to break up the wall of the building itself. Those stick out about 6 feet. The 82 feet was measured from the center line to that point. The mass of the building itself is actually 88 feet from the center of King Road. So what we're asking for is a 12-foot variance, and the reason we are asking is we're only required to have a 10-foot landscape strip on the east side, but we feel in order to maintain a mass of trees on that particular side, to protect the residents on that side, the subdivision to the north, that home is 81 feet from the center line of King Road. We felt that it would be far better off leaving 30 feet on that side as opposed to 18 feet.
The question I had, and I understand what you're saying, and what you're doing too, if they're seeking a variance, are we allowed to do that using a PUD?
The trustees, in approving a PUD, can approve a variation on setbacks and height and things of that nature.
So that's not going to be an issue, in other words? The
No,
fact
I mean,
that
as
it's
long
not-
as the trustees approve that as part of the PUD.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
And just a point of note here, the property to the north there in Wicklow Woods, that's 81 feet or whatever, I think it was 81 feet from center line. Back when those were developed, the requirement was 75 feet from center line, so that's how that came about. That's as close to King Road as it is.
If you add back in the deferred parking, does it still meet the 40% gross green space?
Yes, it would. It's actually about 36% when we add in deferred parking, if we would ever be required to do that. We certainly don't intend on it being used for anything other than the complex that we're proposing.
Were there any other options for building design, or maybe you move the main mast, the 408, toward the road, and then the smaller structures out the back? Then I think you could almost eliminate, you wouldn't have to worry about the 81 feet. I mean, to me, it's just a funny design, you know, the way it's laid out, where you could draw other options, where you bring the main mass of the building away from these residents on the east side, move it maybe closer to King Road, but stay within the 100 feet off, and then make some little tails off the back of the building. I guess you would say like a, like an E. So the bottom would be King Road. Then I think you could still stay within all of our setbacks.
I see what you're saying, but my question was...
I don't think the people, well, I guess we'll have to hear what the people have to say.
Well, yeah,
But I think they'd be happier with it being closer to King Road and these people's recreation areas being in the back of this building, not the building being set way back.
Yeah, because technically, by code, they could be back a little further, but they're trying to move.
They're trying to
I
move
understand,
slow.
trying to move it closer to the road to keep it further
Yeah, but
from the back.
But they only have, 254 feet closer to the road when they have 408 closer to the back fence.
But for the residents who live there, it's better to be further from the road.
Well, they would have to be 100 feet from the road by our rules, so.
But that was my question. Can we approve something like this when a variance is required, according to Darrell, that the trustees will make that decision? They don't have to go to Board of Zoning Appeals, is that correct?
Right, the trustees in approving the PUD would approve that
The variance
deviation
inside it.
from the 100-foot setback.
Are there other questions from the zoning commission for the people who are proposing the project before we allow other people a say?
Would there be any option for the trustees or us to create an easement to Sylvania Avenue eventually to alleviate traffic? Like if a commercial development goes, let's say a CVS goes on the corner of Sylvania and King. I mean, if you look at these developments around and none of their parking lots connect, I can give you an example. Look at Anderson's Market, the medical facility next door, all the parking lots, you can't flow through. So if I want to make...
Because they don't want it.
No, but I mean, for future planning, doesn't it make sense to make a stub street here at the back of this thing? So eventually you can have people coming in from Sylvania to alleviate congestion?
So you're
Try to go
talking
east
about
on...
cross-access easement.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
Like when you build a subdivision, you guys always, a lot of times, leave a stub street. So if there's an empty parcel next door, guess what?
But the parcel next door is currently owned by somebody else. It's not part of the project.
It's not part of this project, no, but I'm saying you could make an easement or something down the road. It's just a thought. King Road obviously is, with two entrances that close directly across from the Kingston, I think Sylvania would be a feasible option, but.
Any other questions from members of the commission?
Parking, I have a question about the parking. Is 126 spaces, that's what this building calls for?
Yes.
It does. And Darrell, you're talking about deferred parking?
Yes.
And could you explain what that means?
The deferred parking allows for the developer to have less than the required parking, as long as it's indicated on the site plan, so that at some point in the future, if the zoning manager requires it, that parking that was indicated on...
Okay, I understand, I did the same thing, yeah. So we don't have enough parking places, say, put 10 more parking places, they put 10 more parking places in.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I did that too. That's a good move.
Addressing the cross-access easement, typically that's something the Lucas County engineer will bring up in their review. But
Sorry.
Well, no, I'm curious why.
Because I sometimes feel like the county engineers have a lot of project on their books when they're looking at these, so. I guess they wouldn't forward think that, I mean, there's a lot of issues that we see now, and then you talk to somebody and say, well, yeah, the state wished they wouldn't have done that, or the county wished they wouldn't have done that. And then we as citizens have to deal with it down the road, so I'm trying to think ahead, like, I already see that being an issue.
And typically, that's only done when it's uses of a similar nature, like two commercial properties, like along Central, where you can get commercial next to commercial next to commercial. Offices next to retail, or retail next to retail, or whatever. This being residential, I don't think people living in apartment buildings would necessarily want commercial traffic heading through, their apartment complex to get out onto King, coming through from Sylvania rather than stopping at the light at the intersection or vice versa. I get what you're saying, but, assuming that the bottom part of this parcel, corner of Sylvania and King, will be developed as commercial, which is probably
100%
safe
it's
assumption.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess I just thought, even if they put a gate there, say at 10 PM, and they have a gate there that shuts, so there's not a lot of cut through at night, but that's fine. If the county engineers didn't think of it, I'm not gonna do their job, so.
Certainly if the property owners wanted to do that, the township definitely would not be opposed to it, but.
Other questions? Okay, we're going to allow people who wish to address the issue. You saw the procedure before. Come to the microphone, state your name, your address. We'll again ask you to be succinct, and I would invite you to step up if you have comments or that you'd like to make about the project.
Hi, I'm Tony Calamonte. I live at 5141 Shadywood Court. I'm actually here as counsel for Deer Hollow Homeowners Association. There are some issues that were brought to my attention just fairly recently. Literally last night I received a phone call. So from a procedural standpoint, I understand where this process is, and I understand Lucas County Planning has approved it, and I understand that you're most likely to make a recommendation. Some things I heard in both presentations that I just wanted to bring to your attention of concern. One, there was an issue of deed restrictions as they policed the 55 and older restriction. As I heard in this presentation, unique to the prior, is that it's going to be policed in the lease. That's the only place it can be policed, right? I mean, a deed restriction is going to deal with the transfer of property. I only ask, has the board reviewed those leases that are referenced in the presentation today to confirm that those leases are going to be in place? Even if it's not an issue here, it certainly should be before the trustees approve it, because those homeowners have a right to know who their neighbors are. This is not just going to be a huge obstruction to their lives visually, it's going to be a huge obstruction to their lives realistically. And who those people are, they have a right to know who their neighbors are going to be long term. And if there's an issue with renting these, because they're going to be apartments, and I don't hear that term used like it's because for the reason it's not used, they're apartments. And there's going to be a lot of movement in and out of who these people are, a lot of transition. Just kind of policing who and how is important, I think, as we move forward. From another procedural standpoint, as we just listened, how the variance was presented with regard to a relationship to King Road, really obviously subject to now trustee approval. There was really no discussion as to whether or not, or my understanding as to whether or not you can even make a recommendation, or are you making a recommendation subject to the trustees approving the variance? So there's really a jurisdictional issue that I don't know if I've heard has been addressed. I don't know if that needs to be addressed, but certainly is your recommendation going to be subject to that variance being considered at some later date? Some other issues that are really non-legal are just, we've talked about the elevation. Obviously, those people that live on Meadow Green to the east are going to be staring at something. They've been used to looking at trees for a long time. When they bought their property, there's going to be a substantial diminution in value. These aren't legal issues. These are just issues in the community that need to be looked at carefully before any recommendation or approval is made. Understanding those approvals will most likely be made, again, these are going to have to be addressed at the next level. Some other issues that I think are important that were brought to my attention literally an hour before this is there are wildlife issues, and apparently a biologist is looking at those woods, and there are bald eagles there. Whether there's nesting or not in those woods, I wasn't aware of this, but it was brought to my attention that a biologist is looking at that, and I don't know what that means as far as any designation down the road, but I don't believe that was addressed at the zoning board or the Lucas County Planning Commission. I'm certainly certain that wasn't raised here, and I don't know if that's been looked at by anybody, whether there's owls, bats, and bald eagles. Those are just brought to my attention. And I know that they have asked a biologist to look into that. I don't know if any of those were made part of the documentation as part of the petition before you now. So I raised those issues, again, some legal, some not. I was asked to speak on behalf of the association this evening, and obviously, as to the legal issues, we'll be following up with those. I don't think those are even appropriately before you this evening, because you either make a recommendation or you do not, and though a lot of those issues will rest on the trustees at the next level. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
My name is Joe Stewart. I live at 4105 Meadow Green Drive. And I'd just like to address a few things that I'd like to have you take into consideration. First off, Mr. Sabo, if I had been aware of the land use meetings that you had, and I had the time after work, I definitely would have been here to listen in on what you were talking about. I think everybody who cares about these neighborhoods should be in attendance. But
yeah, it was publicized, and I was a little surprised because this is exactly what happens when someone follows the program. Well, we don't want that. And I have found I wasn't being nosy, but I was zoning inspector at the time, and when I go check the property, the woods are a good place to dump my grass, and I don't want to change doing that. I mean, things like that.
Right.
And, oh, okay. That's why I mentioned how long's the property been for sale, then buy it and leave it as it is, and you're all set. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. The other thing, I believe they said the property had been for sale for several years. I only remember the god-awful yellow and black sign for sale being up for maybe 2 years.
That's 6 months.
Okay. It has not been up for sale for very long, as far as the general public has been aware of. My main concern is the height of that building. And as Tom said, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, I'm sorry. It seems like most of the residents are closer to the Meadow Green side of the property. And the narrow distance that he's shown between the parking spaces and the parking garage, I'm not sure that somebody that's in the garage, if there was a car parked in the parking space, would be able to carefully back out of the parking garage and not hit a car that was parked there. I don't know what the scale of that drawing is.
There is, from the parking space, these look like...
25 feet.
The parking spaces look like to be 9 by 20, 180 square foot. That's a normal parking lot. And he's got 25 feet from the front of the garage. In fact, not quite the front of the garage. It's more than 25 feet. A standard drive aisle is
20
feet.
20 to 25.
It's 20 feet.
Okay.
Standard drive aisle. So there's plenty of room here to do that.
Okay. Let's see, what else do I have? I don't like the fact that there's a 3-story building going to be in my backyard. I would be acceptable to maybe a 2-story. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, it's been brought to my attention that there's already another 55 and older property being built along Central Avenue someplace. Then the people who were here tonight also have a 4-story behemoth looking at them in the face, and we have a 3-story. How many of these places do we need in Sabina Township?
This very thing happened in my subdivision, which is a Hopa community. They're allowed to have, it's 55 and over, but there's a percentage that's allowed. That's why I question it. This evidently is not like that, obviously. And they already turned the plan in, and they wanted to run the subdivision from Sylvania Avenue to 400 feet back from Central Avenue. And all the houses are going to look just as they are now. Well, something happened in bankruptcy and that, and there was an apartment complex. It was like homes all in there. It's going to be rental properties. Well, that was an issue. And let's see, I asked someone, how many apartments, buildings are there in this township that people can move into? And I forget who it was I talked to, but it was someone just like Mr. Orvitz. And there wasn't enough. They were all filled. It wasn't there any that's sitting idle, because that was the question we had. But it needs things like this. And from what I understand, the building that's going on, people aren't necessarily buying homes; they're moving into apartments. And that's how they build. But I'm concerned. One of the concerns was when I read the minutes. I mean the information here. Is those setbacks? Is that setback correct? And I'm satisfied from what you said. As long as the trustees, we're giving a recommendation. That's all. And the trustees are going to make that decision. And some of the questions that are brought up and comments that are brought up to us, it's sort of like, what are we supposed to do? I mean, especially if they're following the program.
I understand.
It's really difficult for a body like this to say no when everything is right. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I understand that too. And I anticipate you probably all will probably approve and recommend this. But I still want to make my say. And
okay, appreciate that.
The other thing is, when you do go for a variance, don't you have to have a reason for asking for that variance outside of...
What? I'm sorry?
When you ask for a variance for the setback, don't you have to have a reason for asking for that variance?
It requires a hardship. In this case here, if I were on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they're moving the building forward to give these residents more protection, boy, that's hard to turn down. Now, if you're putting it back toward them, now that's a different story.
Right.
But a lot of cases, look at the construction right now. Take Lowe's. You need all that parking place up front? No, I've never seen it filled. And on busy days. And the same thing goes here. But this is all, looks like it's all brought together into a nice group. And the distance. These trees, I'm curious about the trees. How high did you say those trees were, Mr. Orman?
They're at least 40 feet high, and it's built from measure by triangulation.
Usually when you strip the property, they'll put in, oh yeah, we'll put vegetation in. Well, they'll put in 5-foot trees. We'll be dead by the time those things grow.
Yeah.
But this is already there. I went out and looked at this. So
Do you want to finish your comment? Yeah.
Well, the other thing I want to say is, in my backyard, I had 5 trees that were over 40 feet tall. And within the first 5 years I was there, they had decayed to the point to where I had to take them down. And I've replanted 3 trees back there now, and they are about 25 feet tall now. So it takes time for that to grow back. And I appreciate your time, and that's the only
Thank you.
comments I have.
Next. You have a question?
One quick comment on the vote for the recommendation. It is a PUD, so part of the idea behind the PUD is to have a little bit more flexibility in the approval process and a little bit more customization, flexibility with the township and the project.
Right.
Just
My name is Alice George. I live on 4149 Meadow Green. I'm actually on the corner of Meadow Green and Meadow Rose. Meadow Rose dead ends into this property. At the time of our purchasing the home, this was going to be a housing development that this road was going to lead into. Main reason we purchased it. No 3-story buildings are anywhere in that area. The library isn't, Kroger isn't, and neither is Kingston. No houses live behind there, so nobody has an obstruction whatsoever over there. This is the only corner left with trees. I sit out every night, honest to goodness, in the summertime, bats at dusk. They're amazing. I listen to the owls at night, and they are eagles out there. Somebody does need to look into it. We are losing all of our trees.
Hi, Catherine Boland, 4013, Meadow Green Drive, excuse me. The biologist's name in Columbus, Ohio, that's looking into this. It's Keith Lott, L-O-T-T, and his phone number is 614-416-8993, extension 31, and I got a fax if you'd like it. And Cheryl Rice, which is local federal agency, is also what got him involved into this. I've seen eagles, of course bats, but there are other protected animals that could be in there. I'm not sure that if they even have a nest in there, it's protected. Okay, that's what I wanted to say for that. And I'm a little insulted. Seniors, okay, then I'm a senior. I'm 56. I'm very active. I have a car. I have kids coming in and out. There will be traffic. The average age, I'm sure, is not going to be 70 or whatever the age. I'm sure their average age is going to be my age, 60, if at all, because a lot of people are still so active, still have kids at home. Matter of fact, they can't get their kids out of the home. Luckily, I have 2 successful kids, and they are out. But I'm more active than I'm sure, and I have aches and pains. I'm sure a 55-year-old or 56-year-old is more active than I. And that's it. There's other things, but they were addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
My name is Imad Swaid. I live in 4133 Meadow Green Drive. To make sure my neighbor, they're right about the bird coming in there. I have the owl, big owl, and I have a report, police report for that. They follow him for 2 days in the area to try to protect him. What happened to, I want to ask the community for a question, what happened for the rule and regulation, the law you had, when we moved into Sylvania Township, when you cut the tree, you charge for it. You give penalty to the person he cut the trees. This is in 1990, 90, 91, 92, 93. Don't they have that rule before?
Not that nothing I'm aware of.
Can you check into that? Because that's really, I'm aware of that. In 1993, 92, 94, they used to charge, they give them a ticket. So if somebody cut the trees in Sylvania Township. Well, that's one thing. Second thing, I don't think, I want to come home, my wife come home, got 3 stories house behind me, watching me, taking my clothes, relaxing, sit on my house, and I have right behind me a building, 3-story building, watch me what I'm doing, me and my wife and my kids. Second text, they always said south of Sylvania Road and King Road, that's where's the commercial. What happened to that rule regulation you made? North of Sylvania and King Road has to be residential all the time. That's what Sylvania engineered did say. That in 94, 95, 96 to 99. Now we've seen everything change. Anywhere somebody want to buy something, want to spend money in Sylvania Township, bring them in, bring them in. How about the people been there for 24 years? They paying all these taxes. They came to Sylvania Township for that. And now everything changed. They have no right to say it. Lucas County kind of decide, we need this, yeah, go ahead and do it. Where are we at? We're nobody there? I mean, our family, our wife, our kids, this is our houses. Would you like to go to your house after 9 hours, 10 hours working? Go to your house and sit relaxing, you have to close all the curtain because you got somebody you're looking at you from across over? Would you like that? To your wife or your kids? I got kids, I got wife at home, I don't want that. You know, that's he's saying 39 feet. 39 feet is 39 feet. If you measure it, it's 39 feet. It's going to look at my house, look at my bedroom, look at my living room, anywhere I'm going to do. And you never guys said it's going to be north of King, north of Sylvania, on King Road, it's going to be commercial. Always been residential. Why you guys change your mind? Who changed it? What happened? Thank you.
Daryl, what is the setback for landscape buffer? I mean, they're given 30 feet. What's the code say?
Well, it's PUD, so pretty much whatever gets approved.
I don't think you get your book out.
But in a non-PUD, say, straight R5.
I don't think the people sitting in there realize how wide 30 feet is. It's as wide as this room.
Right. Yeah, 30 feet is extensive. Well, a rear setback would be 30 feet, but that wouldn't necessarily have to be landscape. That's just from the building to the property line, and that would be in a straight R5. I mean, as far as a landscape strip, we don't actually have a specific one for residential. We just have for commercial and industrial. And that's for rear 5 feet if they're bordering other commercial or industrial, and if they're bordering, for commercial industrial that's bordering residential, then it's 30 feet. But residential bordering other residential, there isn't a set landscape strip.
Okay.
Go to you. Name and address.
My name is Mary McKinstray. I live on 4324 Cherry Grove Lane. I represent the Oak Creek subdivision on King Road. A few of us received invitations to this meeting. Mr. Zabel, you made the comment that the meeting was published. A few came to the July meeting, and once we got here, we were advised that the meeting was canceled because Lucas County did not show up. I agree with the comment the gentleman made. A lot of it is the timing of the meetings. Okay, it's not that we're not interested, but some of us are working and we can't make it to the meetings. I attended the meeting on Tuesday. My concern is threefold. I've lived in Sylvania Township for 20 years. In that 20 years, what was once a nice, quiet community has turned into a noisy, traffic-ridden neighborhood. The roundabout was supposed to make traffic easier. The street light, the new street light on Sylvania and King was supposed to do the same. It is not. Kingston was supposed to be a quiet neighbor, and between the 3 alarms that come down King Road, it is not a quiet neighborhood. I fear for the residents in your community. We can't sit out in our backyards anymore. If every 911 call, the police department, fire department, and an EMS come down King Road. So the traffic, and it's my understanding that there will not be a new street light on King Road. The school buses leave the garages at 2 o'clock and shoot right down King Road. So the residents are not going to have an easy time coming out on King Road. Secondly, every time we have a new development near King Road, the water pressure goes down. So I'm concerned about whether or not our sewer system, I wasn't here when they put the sewer system in, but I'm concerned on whether or not the sewers will be able to contain a new facility. And will we be tearing up Sylvania Avenue, Brent Road, or King Road to accommodate another influx of homes? Thirdly, Sylvania is turning out to be a senior citizen community, and the baby boomers still have homes to sell, and our homes are not selling. So I asked the question, I think it was asked at the meeting Tuesday, we need to assess on how this is going to affect the property values in the surrounding area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Cook, 4223 Meadow Green. Tom, I agree with you. It's an odd shape. I'm a construction guy. you can manipulate this, turn it a little bit to give us, we're on the east side. This room's 50, 55 feet, not 30. 100 foot would be great. Give us the 140 the other guy's got. Keep us away from it, manipulate the building. Bob, I tried to purchase property. I wanted an acre behind our property. It's in negotiations. This was a year ago. 75,000 an acre. It's in negotiations. We'll let you know. What do I do?
You're the first person that ever said that.
Yeah.
Sir, I offer him to, sir. I offer him to. They
Yeah,
refuse.
I was told it's in negotiations. They wanted to sell the whole lot, not part of it.
Okay.
So, in regards to that, we were snubbed, whatever the case was. There was an attempt. Again, this is going to be approved. It'll go to the trustees. I like the idea of a different movement, manipulating the structure of the house. Everything else has been said, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else before we start to discuss? Okay, looks like one more.
My name is Ken Marciniak. I'm a commercial realtor that has been the marketing agent for this property. I live at 4755 King Road, right on King Road, and I'm very happy with it. The property was listed in March of 2014. The property, it was owned by Mr. Porter. Mr. Porter is a minority fellow who passed away. He purchased the property in 1947 and was a sharecropper. And the remnants of that home that he lived in and that he raised his children in was just demolished recently. The property now is in the estate of his, and his daughter Samantha Adams was the first minority female chiropractor in Northwest Ohio. The four descendants are all professional people, and they're marching orders to me when I listed it, and there were numerous agents who wanted to market this property because it was such a prime property, was that they wanted to have something that would bring honor to their name and would be good for the community. They have turned down an offer from a Boston developer for a retail complex that Northwest Ohio has never seen. It was elaborate. It was beyond anything anybody could imagine for Northwest Ohio. They felt the demographics of the neighborhood would support it. The owners turned down AAA that's building a new service center behind the Myers store. They turned them down because AAA would not adjust the lay of their building. AAA wanted all of the doors to face out onto Sylvania Avenue, and we wanted it to have the office area as the way it sets on Airport Highway. The office area faces, we couldn't come together, so they left. Kroger's approached us to buy the whole thing, and none of these met with any reception for these people because they felt it wouldn't be good for the community. They turned down an offer of $500,000 for the corner piece for a gas station carry out, and they showed us the rendering of what it was, and if it wouldn't have had gas pumps out, you'd have never known it was a gas station. I mean, it was incredible. The preferred use of this property was for ProMedica. I approached ProMedica for a year and a half. They went so far as to offer it to them free for a year on a land lease. They'd give them a land lease because we knew they were involved with downtown Toledo, the Monroe Street project. So we said, we'll land lease it to you for as long as you want. We'll give it to you for free for the first year. And they respectfully said, no, we're not interested. If I spoke with Kingston once, I've spoke to Kingston 10 times. Obviously, there's no interest. These fellas came along and negotiated a hard deal, and the owners wanted to make sure that they weren't doing anything that would really be a hardship, and we negotiated and ended up not getting exactly what they wanted, and I was the gentleman that spoke to the gentleman about the 1 acre, and that's correct. He did call me and ask if he could buy. I didn't recall that it was 1 acre, but he did. He was the only person that did, and we couldn't. I mean, we couldn't sell 1 acre out of the middle. It just would not make any sense. So I want to tell you that they have had offers from speculators who wouldn't disclose what kind of use they had for the property. They just wanted to give them a bunch of money and sit on it and wait. And we felt that this use would really be in line with the land use study. And so I told them I would come tonight and make a presentation on their part. Thank you very much.
Anybody else before we discuss? One more time, but then we're going to call it a day.
I did my homework too on that piece of property, and he's right. She was the first, I think, African-American doctor here in this area. And she had no children, I believe. She had none. These are related. She had 4 children. I thought I looked it up, and she had no children. Then there's a piece of lot, if everyone, I'm sure, knows Aries and knows that piece of land. There's another strip there that's, I asked the owner, when I asked them to clean it up, or the township to ask the owners to clean it up, they came out and I tried to buy that piece of land as well. And they were asking way too much. And then they tried to get with them. Yeah, well, they tried to get with them to sell it together. And that owner said, you know, he wouldn't, or they wouldn't. Because it was under estate. It's been through legal troubles too in the beginning.
It will probably.
So that's why that land was there for a while.
Well, I think we're getting into areas that aren't necessarily relevant as
Right, but I tried also, well, just to let you know, I tried also, my husband and I tried to buy that lot behind us, but they wanted to sell it along with that lot as well. So it's not like we didn't sit back and just, you know, let it stay woods and hopefully no one would buy it. Well, we tried, we did try.
I do have a question for Mr. Marciniak. Right now, it's all the property from Sylvania for the properties in the same estate, and you're splitting off this part, and then the corner property would still be in the estate for some future request, rezoning, sale?
Yes, we have 7.5 acres, along with the 8/10 of an acre that this young lady was.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay, I think it's our time to do our job. Any other comments or questions or things people are thinking about?
I guess I'll just mention that, you know, we obviously as a board knew this property was for sale. There's other projects that have come before this board. One particular that comes to mind is the one on Mitchell, and we couldn't believe it's, what, a 90-room residential care facility and then some condos or
Villas.
15 villas, yeah, around it. And this property was 15 acres. I recommended, well, why don't they look at King Road, because there was a lot of opposition out on Mitchell in the middle of a farm field. So I mean, there's been people looking, and something was going to go on this woods eventually. I'm glad Ken just let all of you hear your options, because commercial use I don't think you would have wanted, but like Bob Sable says, if they play by the rules, then that's kind of what can go there. So here's our option to create a buffer between you and commercial with some residential. Do I love the building layout? No, and I'll be the first to admit that. That may be something Daryl can work on before it goes before the trustees and tweak the layout a little bit. But they are creating quite a generous buffer from what we've seen other projects.
Yeah, Tom, I just want to add on to that buffer. From what I can see here, you know, we're talking about trees that are 30 to 40 feet you know, in that vicinity. But you're also looking at the back of that building. We're looking at a 122-foot setback just to the property line. And then if you take, obviously everyone's not, their homes aren't built on the very back of that lot. So, I mean, you're probably looking at a pretty good 150 feet. And if you're looking this way, or I guess down from that 3-story building, which actually is quite smaller than what the zoning would allow, quite shorter. Anyway, when you look down at an angle, you've got trees you're looking through, plus you've got the distance of 150 feet, so it sets it further back. So my concern originally was that buffer to the east. But, you know, 30 feet of landscape buffer with existing growing trees, that's a whole lot different than rip everything out and go put in a bunch of, you know, 8-foot arbs. So,
John, did you come in the winter? You see the trees that is there?
I mean, I can't help the winter, you know, we lose leaves
Yeah,
around
you
here.
gotta think about
We're not in the
summer
south,
climate.
and
I
if
know
you
you
want
don't live
leaves
there. That's what we live there.
all year long, then, well, and again, the property owner has the right to sell their property. You know, we can't change that. On this board, we can't change that. If they don't want to sell you 1 acre, they don't have to sell, no one says they have to sell you 1 acre. They want to sell all the acreage together, as unfortunate as that is. And look, speaking of the nature, there's probably no one in this room that loves the outdoors more than me. That property out on Mitchell, I had to vote on that property to approve it because it was consistent and it fit. And I lost one of my favorite goose hunting spots. All right, so I love the outdoors. I get nature. I understand exactly what you're saying. But we can't stop property owners from selling the property to be developed as long as it fits within the code. And I think that, I mean, it's more than generous in this particular project. And as Tom said, it could be a whole lot worse. That could have been.
I mean, not too many years ago, there was a junkyard across the street on both corners. So, I mean, you have to look back before a lot of you even moved and bought your homes. I mean, this was not a pretty area of the township, hence the hazardous waste fence across from Meyer. That's still there. So, it's cleaned up a lot, and it's moving forward. This really is the last little piece of wooded, even the back of Oak Creek was owned by Larry's Junkyard, Spuds. I mean, so this was eventually something going to go there because of the growth in the area and cleaning up. So,
and just to address one more nature issue, again, it's not a zoning issue, but I certainly understand it. Yeah, there is an eagle's nest right down the road, right on 10 Mile Creek. I mean, I've cranked my neck so many times looking at the eagles and nearly ran into the creek. So we do see those. I'm not a biologist by any stretch. I don't know that there's trees on that particular, or nest on that particular property, but they're right. I mean, they're less than a mile down the road. So of course we're going to see them flying around and possibly, you know, landing in the trees and using that. But you know, again, it's very hard for us, as much as we understand the you know, the arguments and the concerns and the thoughts. This is a very good project that fits within the code, and it's very hard for us to say no when they're playing by the rules and everything fits. So.
See, you know, and people know how I voted on other things. I mean, like, one was preceding this. To me, it was easy to say yes to that one because there was another similar project right next to it. It's in a commercial area. I mean, yes, there's residential, but I mean, it's not the same kind of residential, I think, that you see as you go down King Road. I mean, I'm looking at this one.
There's a lighted intersection out of the previous one.
Yeah, I mean, that one, I mean, you've got to separate. I mean, and then like the one that we put out at Mitcha, you know, it's a single story, consistent with like what Sunset is, sitting out, you know, in a neighborhood for people who need that kind of services. I have some, I don't know, just instinctive, that I think you have a beautiful, beautiful project. I mean, the drawings, I think, are phenomenal. I just, when I think about going down King Road, somehow it just seems inconsistent with everything that's around it. And that's my trouble with...
I would normally agree with that, but look right across the road. Is that inconsistent with Kingston?
It's, I mean, it's three-story, it's rental. Yeah, it's three-story, it's rental. I mean, we did have a discussion, and like I said, to me, the other project, because it was so similar to what was around it, we know we're going into some revisions to the land use plan. We know that there's been discussions that we are perhaps starting to design a community, and I'm in that age group, so I appreciate it, that, you know, caters to the elderly, but then are we pushing out the millennials and the people who want, you know, something a little bit different? I mean, I think this is a beautiful, beautiful project. I just wonder about, you know, as we look towards the future of the community, if we're going to look back in 3 or 4 years and say, boy, I wish we'd had that land for a different kind of, you know, project, you know, working with people who want the best interests for the community. I mean, that's just sort of a, I mean, it has, and you are absolutely right. They have followed the rules. It's consistent with the land use plan. It's transitional. We've got all the approvals of the planning committee, and I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't seem like it's just right for that spot.
If you drive down Brent, though, I mean, there's a lot of apartments on Brent with houses right behind them, and I drove by on the way here. They're all two-story,
right?
But they're fairly high.
Well, and they're more townhomes than apartments. I mean,
complex where dealers used to be in house, I mean, that's a three-story, isn't it? That backs up right next to the high dollar homes there too.
oh yeah, I mean, they're backing up. I mean, I'm not saying there's not, but the ones that I think you're talking about, that, you know, you have the doctor's building and then the next ones, I mean, they're more townhomes than, you know, a three-story apartment building. I mean, I was talking to somebody today and they thought those were like condos, you know, as versus rentals. I know they're rentals.
Well, people forget also that Lord's bought up a lot of Sylvania's apartments.
Right.
So all of that apartment rentals went to the wayside, leaving a vacuum, if you will, for more apartments to come in because our university bought up all of the available rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So there's now a void of rentals in Sylvania Township. I mean, there's been Blade articles on it. So is this the right spot for it? I don't know. I tried to push another project here that I thought was maybe lower impact, but they didn't want it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking we approved that project that's out by Central and Her, which is designed for seniors, right? And that's all rental property, right?
And it's full, but they're not all seniors there. That's what scares me about these. They come in as all seniors, and then my brother's living there right now. He's 2 years older than me. So,
and the ones on Central and Her, yeah.
If you can pass a credit app, I'm telling you, apartments, if there's not rules or laws saying, I mean, it's almost discrimination for them not to rent to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I know Waterside even ran into that when they came out by me, targeting it at 55 and older, because, and I think the state of Ohio, Bob might be able to help me, but the state of Ohio, there is something, HOPA saved them, but
you can have a
they had to watch how they marketed that,
right,
because they were discriminating against younger people, so that wanted maybe to buy a starter home or whatever. So this, I don't know, I don't buy into the 55 and older thing, I really don't.
So if a 55 and older market doesn't pan out, because nobody can sell their house and they're stuck with it, or they decide they go straight from a house into assisted living, then we've got an apartment building that in 15 or 20 years is an apartment building. I mean, that's... Any other comments or questions?
Well, you can also probably look at it this way too. Instead of them making it a three-story, they could max out the property, get rid of the 30-foot buffer, get rid of the 80-foot buffer to the north, get rid of the parking to the thing, and run it all the way out 10 feet to the property line, and make it a two-story and completely engulf the entire property. And then you people won't be happy when you're looking at a two-story building, because the landscape they'll put in will be a 6-foot pine tree that will both be 6 feet underneath before it gets high enough to hide the building. I think that...
You want, George?
Yeah, The only comment I'd like to make is that, remember the building is 39 feet high. You envision it as a tall, three-story building. But 39 feet high is 7 feet higher than a two-story single-family home. It is not that massive. It is not that high. And you can't, Mr. Cott is absolutely correct. If you attempted to build something of this nature in a two-story fashion, you wouldn't have 68% of that site open space. You'd have to clear that thing down. The other issue, I mean, they talked about the senior housing project on Central Avenue that's just west of Centennial Road that Redwood Development put in. I happen to design that project. There's going to be 268 units. And do you know what the site coverage is? Because it's not a PUD. It's 70% of the site is covered with buildings because they're all one story. I mean, you're getting the benefit of maintaining the maximum amount of trees that can be in effect maintained in this site, and you're putting a very, very quiet development in the center of it. You're not putting something that's going to be offensive and is going to have all sorts of noise and other activities. If this site were developed, as Ken had mentioned, commercial, what do you think would be in the back end of that? The face of the building would face King Road. The back of the building would be the service area. That certainly isn't as attractive as looking at trees and the back of landscaping areas. Mr. King is correct. The building proper is 122 feet from the property line. And if you take the angle of repose, in the wintertime, yes. When all the leaves are off the trees, you're going to see the shadows of the buildings between those trees. In the summertime, no. Those woods are so thick, you're not going to be able to see it. I think you have to take that into consideration in your decision with regards to this project. It is by far the best that that site can have in a transition zone that is compatible with not only the single-family residential in the area, including the height of the buildings, but it's directly across the street from a nursing home. And that nursing home is, I'll bet, 39 feet high or higher, because it was allowed in Sylvania City, where their height requirements are greater than 45 feet. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
What's the elevation going to be of the actual site, the ground? I mean, that's not a very large detention pond. So, I mean, is there going to be much fill? Because if you're saying 39 feet, but you fill it 4, then we're essentially higher than the existing grade of the houses to the east.
No, the actual buildings are going to be about at the same grade as the existing grade of the site itself. The detention pond is, it's totally different than what we used to develop even 2 or 3 years ago. The federal government has put out a bunch of new rules and regulations. Then the Ohio EPA on top of that has added a bunch more regulations. We have to have a sedimentation pond within the pond itself. We have to have a micro-filtering pond besides the sedimentation pond. It's actually a 3-stage process. The water, because of the fact that this is extremely sandy soil, isn't going to stay in there very long. But we have to provide all those amenities to make sure that the filtering process takes place. The rate at which the water will go out of that particular pond is less than the rate the water is going into the ground right now, primarily because we have to meet all of those particular requirements. The water line on King Road, and I know this for a fact because I was a sanitary engineer for 5 years, and I was sanitary engineer when some of these amenities were put in. There's a 24-inch water line on Sylvania Avenue. It's a high-pressure main that's connected to the Southwest Pump Station. That feeds the 12-inch water line that's in King Road. There is no problem with water pressure in this area. There was prior to the southwest pump station being boosted, but not any longer. The capability of the sanitary sewers is more than adequate to handle a project such as this and the sewage within that particular area, because you're not that far from McCord Road, where the 48-inch sanitary sewer goes all the way up into the city of Sylvania, and then it goes all the way down to River Road in Monclova Township, where the water treatment plant is. So there's more than adequate facilities. The other advantage of this site is there is no intrusion in traffic into the neighborhood. All the traffic goes out to the major artery of King Road, which is designed to carry that. This has a lot of positive aspects to it, and we're just simply asking for your support. Thank you.
What's the average square foot? What are the units that are going to be in the?
The one bedrooms are 650 square feet, the two bedrooms are 825.
Mr. Ovitz, I have a question.
Yes.
One of the things that came up from the audience is the water pressure when they built something about water pressure down. They don't call township. Who would they call about that?
Lucas County Sanitary Engineer.
Okay, I just so that put out. Okay.
Other questions, comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mrs. Himmelman?
You are very convincing, yes.
Mr. Cott?
I have one question. The setback issue is going to be dealt with the trustees?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Creedy?
No.
We have no other items on the agenda. Do we have anything, a meeting for next month?
We do, and one quick note on that, Bree brought it to my attention. It's listed as being November 16th, and I'm not sure why that is. I believe that's got to be a misprint.
We are avoiding election day, or?
Well, I don't know why that would affect it. It should be November 9th.
George.
I don't, unless the board can recall some reason why we would have made it November 16th. The election's the 8th.
The election's the 8th.
All they need is one of those people to
I
go
don't
in
see-
there.
Why don't you just email people? Do you think we need to reset it?
Pardon?
Do you think we need to reset the date, or?
Well, I mean, we've got it listed on our website as the 16th. And I don't know where that came about.
Yeah, I don't either.
It should be the 9th, so I think that's a misprint.
What?
I believe that's got to be a misprint. and-
Okay. Okay, has everybody been following what Darrell is saying here?
No, we were.
That the meeting, right now, the meeting is on the calendar for November 16th, and that is inconsistent with our pattern.
Of the second
And
Wednesday.
so he's saying that it should really, if we are consistent with our pattern, it should be the 9th. Is everybody?
Second.
Do we need a motion to change the date? We probably do.
I guess it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to change the date of the November meeting of the commission from November 16th to November 9th to be consistent with our practice?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mrs. Himmelman?
Yes.
Mr. Cott?
Yes.
Mr. Creedy?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And just one last thing. I probably should send an email out, but for those of you that don't know, the trustees did approve the contract with Reveille for the land use plan updates. So we're starting slowly, the wheels are starting to turn on that, so.
The next
Thank you for
trustees
that.
meeting is when?
Next trustees meeting? Well, there's one next week on the,
I think she's asking when this will
October
go to the
18th.
trustees.
But, which,
Regarding all this mess.
well, on the King Road one?
No, the other, well, either, yeah, right. What, are they gonna have different ones on different days?
Well, yeah, because, the applicants have requested that. So the Presentum one will be, Presentum Road will be on November 1st.
Okay.
The King Road will be on December 6th.
Okay,
Those are Tuesdays, and it's a 5 o'clock meeting in this room.
Yeah, I've been to the trustees, but
Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
No.
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion. Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Zabel?
Yes.
Mr. Himmel? Mrs. Himmeline?
Yes.
Mr. Cott?
Yes.
Mr. Creedy?
Yes.
I don't know if this is a record, but it's pretty close to it.
Man, no, we've been built later than this.
I can tell you really cleaned up your coming.
I think by you establishing that.
I was at the elevator, right?